Welcome to the Growth and Success Mindset Podcast, where we unlock your potential and ignite your journey to extraordinary achievements. Get ready to elevate your thinking, cultivate resilience, and embrace a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's rise above limitations and create a life you love.
Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into a mindset that's, well, the guy's launching rockets, he's shaking up the car industry, he's tweeting constantly.
And honestly, blown a lot of people's minds along the way.
Right. Today we're going deep on Elon Musk, trying to figure out what makes this guy tick.
And how he pulls off what, to most people, seems like the impossible.
You guys are obviously interested in this whole billionaire mindset thing.
How do they think so big? How do they handle risk? And where do they find the inspiration? We're going to try and answer some of those questions today.
What's the real story here? Not just the headlines, but the strategies?
Right.
The mindset behind this guy's success. What can we actually learn from his approach? You know, the man behind the myth, the drive, the ambition, the controversies. Where does it all begin?
Yeah, so to understand Elon Musk, you got to go back to his roots, right? I mean, this is a guy who was born in Pretoria, South Africa, a world away from, the Silicon Valley we usually associate with tech giants. You know what's so interesting about Elon Musk? It's that he's not just launching these flashy projects.
Right.
He's really a master of identifying what he calls the signal amidst all the noise.
Interesting.
He focuses in on what he sees as the truly important long-term trends.
Okay.
The things that will fundamentally reshape the world.
Yeah.
And he pours his energy into those. It's not just about making a quick buck for him.
Right.
It's about tackling these huge, potentially world-changing challenges.
And that focus seems to have been there from the start.
Yeah.
Did you know he taught himself to code at 10 years old?
What?
I mean, that's not exactly your average kid's after-school activity.
Right.
It really makes you wonder if those early experiences played a role in shaping that signal-seeking approach later on.
Absolutely. I think it's not just the coding itself, but it's what it represents.
Yeah.
This self-directed learning, the passion for technology, a willingness to kind of dive in and figure things out on his own. These are all hallmarks of Musk's approach.
Yeah.
And they were evident even in his childhood.
Like he was already tuning out the noise and focusing on what excited him.
Right.
What he believed was important.
Exactly.
Speaking of tuning out the noise.
No, absolutely not. And it speaks to, an innate curiosity, this drive to understand how things work. And then at 17, he moves to Canada, partly to avoid military service, but also, it seems, drawn by, the allure of the growing tech scene in North America.
So even as a teenager, he's already making bold decisions, taking risks to pursue his interests. It's a pattern that we see throughout his life.
Absolutely.
His willingness to kind of break with convention.
Yeah, and those early experiences, I think, really played a role in shaping his entrepreneurial spirit. And, like you said, that willingness to break with convention. From Canada, he ends up at the University of Pennsylvania, earning degrees in both physics and economics.
And that combination alone tells you that he wasn't interested in just limiting himself to one path.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, of course, the famous Stanford story.
Oh, yeah.
Enrolls at a PhD program, only to drop out after 2 days.
2 days.
2 days.
Couldn't resist the pull of the internet. Boom,
He was just exploding, and he's like, I gotta get in on this.
It takes guts, to walk away from a prestigious program to bet on at the time, unproven technology, right? But it speaks to his intuition and his ability to, kind of sense where the world is heading and his confidence, like in his own ability to shape that future.
Yeah. I think that's a key point, right? This confidence that he can actually shape the future, not just ride the wave.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's captivating about Elon Musk? He doesn't just dream big, does he?
No, not at all. It's more than that. He builds those dreams into reality.
He makes them happen.
Exactly. It's that blend of audacity and engineering, this deep belief that you can solve any problem as long as you approach it the right way.
He kind of does seem to play by different rules, doesn't he?
He does.
But, even he had to start somewhere. Let's talk about his early ventures.
Yeah.
Zip2 and PayPal. These weren't just stepping stones. They were massive successes in their own right.
Huge.
What signals do you think he was picking up on back then in the early days of the internet?
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, Zip2, that city guide software that he built with his brother, got snapped up for almost $300 million.
Yeah.
That's not just a win, that's a massive signal that he was onto something.
Yeah.
And then using those profits to fund X.com, which morphed into PayPal, classic Musk, taking these calculated risks, spotting these opportunities in emerging markets. Like, he had a knack for identifying the future of online commerce before most people even knew what online commerce was.
He clearly wasn't afraid to dive headfirst into uncharted territory.
No, he wasn't.
But the X.com and PayPal merger,
Yeah.
that wasn't exactly a smooth ride, was it?
True. There were definitely some bumps along the way.
Okay.
But the way he navigated that merger really speaks volumes about his adaptability. He was willing to pivot, to compromise, to do what it took to make that vision a reality.
It's interesting.
And you have to remember, this was all happening in the late 90s, the wild west of the internet.
Yeah.
He wasn't just riding the wave, he was actively shaping it.
And then he launches what we might call the big three.
Yeah.
SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity. Each company seems to represent a piece of his grand puzzle for the future.
Right.
It's almost like he's trying to build the world he wants to see, piece by piece.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
SpaceX is all about making humanity multiplanetary, like a long-term bet on the future of our species.
Wow.
Tesla is tackling that more immediate challenge of sustainable transportation and energy. And SolarCity, which later merged with Tesla, further solidifies his commitment to a sustainable future. They're distinct companies.
They are.
But they all point to this central theme
Okay.
of tackling these massive long-term challenges.
It's incredible how each of those companies, while tackling different problems, connect back to this central theme of pushing boundaries and solving really big problems.
Yeah.
How about we break down his strategies a bit?
Sure.
We got a lot of information here about his leadership style and how he tackles these challenges.
It's so fascinating how those early passions can almost predict someone's path.
It's like a real-life superhero origin story, but this one's playing out right in front of us. And even beyond those interests,
If you see a bigger, more impactful opportunity,
you go for it.
you go for it.
Talk about betting on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead to the PayPal days. Selling it to eBay for, what was it, $1.5 billion?
A huge sum.
Most people, that's the dream. Time to relax.
Right. Enjoy life.
Not Elon Musk. He saw that money as fuel. Fuel for even bigger dreams.
It's such a powerful lesson there. He could have easily retired, lived a very comfortable life. But instead, he chose to reinvest that fortune into things that could change entire industries. He wasn't aiming for personal wealth at that point.
No, he wasn't settling. And that's huge for anyone listening. Don't let your wins, no matter how big or small, become the finish line.
Use them as fuel to reach bolder goals.
To get to the next level.
It's about understanding that success is a stepping stone, not the destination.
I like that. So speaking of bold goals.
Yeah.
SpaceX, Tesla, SolarCity.
Neuralink, the boring company.
It's like he looked at the future and decided, I'm going to build that myself.
It's incredible, isn't it? Space exploration, sustainable energy, brain-computer interfaces, even tackling traffic.
It's kind of mind-boggling, the scope of what he's involved in.
What's striking isn't just the variety of these companies, though. It's the sheer scale of the ambition behind them. He's not just trying to make things a little better. He's aiming to redefine, to disrupt whole industries.
And he's doing it in areas that are notoriously difficult, some of the most complex challenges out there. And he's not just throwing ideas around, he's actually making this stuff happen. To really illustrate this, I think we should look at one achievement from each company. So for example, SpaceX. They managed the first successful landing and reuse of an orbital rocket.
That's a game changer for space travel, isn't it?
Totally.
It's not just cool, it completely changes the economics of space travel.
It does.
And, you know, this is a perfect example of Musk's first principles thinking in action. He saw the insane cost of space travel as a fundamental problem. So what did he do? He broke it down to the core components.
He didn't accept the way things were.
No. Instead of saying, well, this is just how it is, he asked, why is it so expensive? And then he systematically went about finding ways to reduce that cost.
And reusable rockets were a big part of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, then you've got Tesla shaking up the entire car industry. They're not just building electric vehicles. They're pushing the limits on battery technology, self-driving features, sustainable manufacturing.
Even the big car companies, the giants, are struggling to keep up.
They are.
They played a huge role in making solar power mainstream, became one of the biggest solar providers in the US, again, showing Musk's commitment to a sustainable future.
Yeah. And then there's this stuff that feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Neuralink, working on brain-computer interfaces.
The goal, treating neurological conditions and potentially enhancing human capabilities.
Think about a world where paralysis or Alzheimer's could be a thing of the past.
It's mind-blowing. And I think what sets Musk apart is that willingness to tackle those problems that most people wouldn't even dream of trying to solve. He doesn't just see a challenge, he sees an opportunity to really push the boundaries of what's possible.
He doesn't shy away from the big stuff.
He doesn't.
And even something like the Boring Company, which sounds kind of boring compared to rockets and brain chips.
Right.
But the goal is to revolutionize transportation.
By creating efficient tunnels for high-speed underground transit.
He's taking on traffic head on. It seems like with every venture, he's asking, what seems impossible to solve, and how can we do it?
He's definitely not afraid of a challenge.
So we've seen the achievements. We've seen the crazy scope of his ambition. But what about the guy behind it all? What's the, Musk method? How does he actually approach these challenges?
It's a really interesting combination of factors. There's that boldness, the unwavering belief in the power of engineering.
Yeah.
And of course, the first principles thinking we talked about. But there's also calculated risk-taking and a relentless work ethic. Those are essential parts of his approach.
He's not just some CEO sitting in a fancy office, right? He's deeply involved in the technical side of his companies.
Oh, absolutely. He's constantly pushing his teams to innovate, to find solutions that others might just dismiss as impossible.
He's hands-on. And that first principles thinking, it's crucial. Breaking complex problems down into their simplest parts.
Questioning assumptions.
And then building solutions from the ground up.
Exactly.
He questioned why space travel was so expensive and ended up basically revolutionizing the industry with those reusable rockets.
It's a great example.
And then there's the risk-taking. He's not afraid to go against the grain, even when the stakes are incredibly high.
I mean, think about it. Before PayPal,
It's hard to even remember, right?
online transactions were, I don't know, clunky, insecure, a real headache. PayPal made it, seamless, effortless.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's no wonder that eBay scooped them up for, a cool $1.5 billion.
Yeah, Zip2, this city guide software, might seem almost quaint now. But back in the late 90s, this was revolutionary. It's essentially providing digital maps and directories for newspapers, way before smartphones or Google Maps.
Right.
And what's striking is that he not only built this innovative product, but also managed to convince major newspapers to buy into his vision. So this isn't just tech savvy, it's business acumen.
Absolutely.
Especially at such a young age.
Yeah.
And then selling it for what, around $300 million?
I mean, talk about validation, right?
Validation of this approach.
It wasn't just luck. It was a combination of, like we said, this groundbreaking product, a keen understanding of the market, and, let's face it, some brilliant salesmanship.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial lesson for anyone, right? Innovation alone isn't enough. You got to be able to persuade others to build a market for your ideas.
You got to get people on board. Yeah. I think it's the combination of audacious goals and a deep belief in what he calls first principles thinking.
Yeah, explain that a little bit.
So first principles thinking, it's about breaking down complex problems to their fundamental elements. You strip away assumptions and conventional wisdom, and then you rebuild solutions from the ground up.
It's a very, very different way of looking at the world.
It is. It's a high-risk approach, but it allows him to envision and achieve things that others deem impossible.
Yeah. And I think we see that play out in both SpaceX and Tesla.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into SpaceX first.
Okay.
Founded in 2002 with the stated goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, right?
It really does.
At the time, the space industry was dominated by government agencies like NASA. Private companies launching rockets, let alone colonizing Mars, was considered, I don't know, pure fantasy.
Yeah, it was a fringe idea, to say the least.
But Musk, with his first principles approach, saw it differently. He questioned the assumptions that drove up the cost of space travel, particularly the idea that rockets were disposable, used only once.
Right, like why does it have to be that way?
Yeah, his vision was reusability, landing rockets back on Earth after launch, just like airplanes.
And that vision, which many initially dismissed as crazy talk, is now a reality. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rockets are regularly landing back on Earth, dramatically reducing the cost of space travel.
I mean, it's opened up possibilities that were just unthinkable a few decades ago.
And it's a testament to his engineering-driven approach.
Absolutely. He surrounded himself with, some of the brightest minds in engineering,
Right.
Fostered this culture of rapid iteration and problem solving.
Yeah, and just push the boundaries of what was considered technologically feasible.
And the results, well, they speak for themselves. SpaceX is now a major player in the space industry, partnering with NASA to send astronauts to the International Space Station, developing spacecraft for deep space missions.
And relentlessly pursuing that goal of reaching Mars.
Always pushing forward.
So, while SpaceX is shooting for the stars, Musk also has his sights set on transforming transportation here on Earth. He joins Tesla in 2004, a company already making electric cars, but struggling to gain traction.
Yeah, it was a very different landscape back then.
Musk, with his characteristic boldness, takes the helm and sets out to not just build electric cars, but to make them the best cars in the world, period.
And that's a key distinction, right? He wasn't content with just making electric cars that were, good for the environment. He wanted to make them desirable, aspirational, even sexy.
Yeah, make them cool.
Exactly.
And he did just that.
He did.
The Tesla Roadster, their first production car, was this sleek, high-performance sports car that turned heads.
Yeah, it shattered the stereotype of electric vehicles as being, slow and boring.
Yeah, like milk cartons on wheels.
Exactly.
And then came the Model S, the Model X, the Model 3, each pushing the boundaries of electric car technology, range, performance, and design.
Tesla became synonymous with innovation, luxury, and, a commitment to a sustainable future.
Yeah, and underpinning it all was this relentless focus on vertical integration.
So Tesla didn't just build cars. They designed and manufactured their own batteries, developed their own charging infrastructure, even wrote their own software.
This control over the entire ecosystem, it allowed them to innovate at a pace that traditional car manufacturers just couldn't match.
It was a completely different approach.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and we're just scratching the surface here. So far, we've seen Elon Musk as the tech prodigy, the savvy businessman, the audacious innovator.
Right.
What are some key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, one thing that jumps out is his incredible work ethic. I mean, leading multiple companies simultaneously,
Right.
each one pushing the limits of tech and innovation,
Yeah.
requires a level of dedication that's almost superhuman.
It's crazy.
But it's not just about working hard, it's about working smart.
Right.
He's known for this engineering-driven leadership, being very hands-on with Tesla self-driving tech.
Okay.
SpaceX's reusable rockets.
I'm curious, can you give us a specific example of how that engineering mindset plays out in practice?
Absolutely. Take Tesla's self-driving technology.
Okay.
Musk doesn't just delegate that to his engineers.
Right.
He actively participates in these technical discussions, challenges assumptions,
Wow.
and pushes for innovative solutions.
So he's got that deep knowledge
He does.
from his background.
Yeah, his engineering background gives him a deep understanding of what's technically feasible. And he uses that knowledge to drive his teams forward.
So he's not just the big picture visionary. He's also in the trenches, getting his hands dirty with the technical details.
He is.
That's impressive.
It is. And it's another example of how he filters out the noise.
Right.
And focuses on what truly matters. Building the future that he envisions.
And that future, it seems, includes shaking things up.
Remember his critique of the Stargate AI initiative?
Oh, yeah?
A project with a budget of $500 billion?
It's huge.
He wasn't afraid to challenge it publicly, even with all the potential political fallout.
He went for it.
He did. And that speaks to his conviction, doesn't it? His willingness to stand up for what he believes in, even when it means going against the norm.
But let's be real. This approach, it's not without its downsides.
Of course not.
His leadership style, his work ethic, it's demanding. It's been the subject of a lot of discussion.
Oh, understandably.
Because his drive and ambition are inspiring, sure.
They are.
But there are potential downsides to this approach. We'll talk about those more a bit later.
It's a good point. His vision is inspiring. But it's important to consider the potential impact on the people involved and the potential problems that come with that kind of intensity.
Okay, so we've seen his early life, his companies, we touched on his approach, but what's the big driver behind it all? What's his vision for the future? And how does that fuel this constant pursuit of these seemingly impossible goals?
That's where it gets really interesting. If you look at his companies, their missions, a clear picture starts to emerge. He sees a future where humanity has gone beyond Earth, living on Mars, powered by sustainable energy with augmented capabilities because of advancements in brain-computer interfaces.
Wow.
And connected by these amazing transportation systems that completely change how we move.
Mars colonization, a sustainable energy revolution, brain-computer integration. It's like something out of science fiction.
It is. But for Musk, this isn't just fantasy. It's the future he's actively trying to build.
He believes in it.
He does. And that's what drives him. It's not just about building companies or making money. It's about contributing to this future he believes in. A future where humanity can go beyond its limits, reach its full potential.
That's a powerful motivator.
It is, but it also raises some really important questions.
It does.
What are the implications of these things? What will the impact be on society, the environment? How will they change what it means to be human?
Those are big questions.
They are. And they're things we need to think critically about as we keep going deeper into Elon Musk's world.
So we've just scratched the surface here, but we can already see patterns, right? The unconventional path, the relentless pursuit of these huge goals, the willingness to take risks, challenge the norm, and, of course, this driving vision for the future.
That's fascinating.
It is. But how does he actually put all of this into action? What are the actual strategies he uses to manage risk, encourage innovation, and achieve these things that seem impossible? We'll dig into that next time.
I'm looking forward to it. It's funny, isn't it, how Musk's vision of the future isn't just some abstract idea. It's like woven into everything he does. The companies he builds, the problems he takes on.
We keep talking about thinking big, and he definitely embodies that. But how do you actually manage the risks that come with those, like, crazy ambitious goals?
Especially when you're talking about sending people to Mars.
Yeah. Or messing with tech that could, fundamentally change what it means to be human.
Right. It's not about being reckless, though. It's calculated risk-taking. And I think for Musk, a lot of that calculation comes from his deep understanding of the tech itself and the challenges involved.
So it's not enough to just have a brilliant idea. You got to be able to get into the weeds, the details, understand how complex it all is.
Exactly. And only then can you make those informed decisions. You see this in his hands-on approach at SpaceX, where he was super involved in the design of the Falcon 9's booster system, the reusable one.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't just delegating that stuff. He was in there, understanding the engineering problems firsthand.
So he could work with his team to find those, like, groundbreaking solutions.
Exactly. It's almost like he embodies that engineer mindset, constantly tinkering, solving problems, not afraid to get his hands dirty,
Totally. And that kind of ties back to the first principles thinking we were talking about before. By breaking down complex problems into their, most basic elements, he figures out the core challenges.
And that lets him develop solutions that might seemed impossible before.
Because no one even thought to look at it that way.
Right. Instead of being limited by what everyone else thinks, he's like, okay, how do we build this from scratch?
Starting from zero.
And that's where the real innovation happens, I think. When you're not afraid to challenge assumptions and explore those possibilities that everyone else has just ignored.
So risk management for someone like Elon Musk, it's not just about minimizing the bad stuff that could happen. It's almost like understanding it so well that you can kind of embrace it.
You make it part of the process.
Yeah. You could even say he sees risk as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Definitely. But even with all the planning in the world and understanding the challenges inside and out, there are always going to be surprises.
Of course. Especially when you're trying to do things that have never been done before.
Exactly. And that's where his, I think, almost legendary work ethic comes in. He's known for pushing himself and his teams incredibly hard, constantly testing, refining, iterating until they find those solutions.
There's that quote, I think it's attributed to him. If something's important enough, you do it, even if the odds are against you.
Yeah, that's very Musk. It definitely captures his attitude. But we also have to acknowledge this intense work culture. It's got its critics. Some people say it can lead to burnout, put too much pressure on employees.
It's a fair point. It's inspiring to see his drive, his determination.
It is.
But we got to think about the potential downsides too, right?
Right.
Whether it's a sustainable way to work in the long run.
It raises questions about work-life balance, creating a healthy work environment, all that. Even ethical considerations when you're pushing people that hard.
For sure. We're not saying everyone should try to copy him exactly. But you can still learn a lot from his commitment to his goals, his belief in hard work.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance, right? Pushing yourself, pushing your team, but also prioritizing well-being, making sure there's respect, and it's all sustainable.
Which brings us back to inspiration, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've talked about vision, risk management, work ethic. But where does that drive come from? That passion to tackle these massive challenges?
I think a lot of it stems from a genuine belief that he's working towards something bigger than himself.
It's not about the money or the fame. He's trying to solve problems he thinks will actually benefit humanity.
Exactly. That sense of purpose can be incredibly motivating. You feel like you're contributing to something truly meaningful.
It's like he's tapped into a source of energy that goes way beyond just personal ambition.
And honestly, that's something we can all learn from, whether we're entrepreneurs, artists, or just everyday people who want to make a difference.
It's about finding that thing that truly gets you fired up. makes you want to get out of bed in the morning and like actually push yourself to have an impact.
And once you have that, it becomes less about the obstacles, the difficulties, and more about going after that vision, that goal you really believe in.
Okay, so we've got managing risk, we've got finding inspiration, but there's another part of this whole Musk method that I think people miss. It's his focus on constant learning.
And adapting, right. Yeah. That's so crucial. And it gets overshadowed by, the rockets and the personality and all that. But Musk is a voracious learner, always trying to absorb new information, get his head around complex concepts.
It's like he's on a quest for knowledge that never ends.
Yeah.
Trying to understand more and more about the world and the tech that's shaping it.
And he's not just passively reading stuff, he's actively applying it, connecting ideas that seem totally unrelated.
And somehow that leads to these innovative solutions.
Right. It's that ability to learn and adapt that keeps him ahead of the curve, lets him solve problems in ways that no one else has thought of.
It's like he's building this mental model of how everything works, constantly updating it with new info, new insights. And then he uses that model to make decisions and take action.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. And it's a lesson for all of us, I think. The world is changing so fast. The ability to learn, adapt, evolve, that's crucial for success no matter what you do.
It's not enough to just have knowledge. You got to have that mindset of always wanting to learn more, be open to new ideas, be willing to change course when you need to.
It's about having that beginner's mind, even when you're an expert. Always being curious, always wanting to learn more.
So learning, for Elon Musk, it's not just about facts and figures. It's about developing the ability to think critically, connect the dots, and adapt to the ever-changing world of tech and innovation.
And that's something we can all work on, regardless of what we want to do in life.
All right, we've gotten pretty deep into Elon Musk's world today. His companies, his approach to problems, the forces that drive him to keep innovating. I think it's worth taking a moment to really unpack this Musk method we keep mentioning. It's one thing to have a vision, but how does he actually make it happen? Time and again, against all odds.
Right. It's this potent blend of strategy, personality, and just this relentless drive that honestly borders on superhuman. Take his goal setting, for example. It's not just about setting ambitious targets. It's about setting targets that most people would consider borderline delusional.
Yeah, colonizing Mars, merging human minds with AI. These aren't incremental steps. These are paradigm shifts.
Right, exactly. And he pursues them with this unwavering conviction. It's incredible.
It's not just blind faith either. He backs it up with this engineering-driven leadership style.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a CEO who sits in a boardroom, detached from the details.
No, he's in the trenches with his engineers.
Yeah, poring over designs, pushing for rapid prototyping and testing, fostering a culture of relentless problem solving.
But it's demanding, right? I mean, this move fast and break things mentality doesn't always sit well with everyone.
No, it can be very intense.
We've seen the criticisms of the workplace culture at his companies, allegations of burnout, safety concerns, pushback against unionization efforts.
Right, and those are valid concerns. There's definitely a need for a more nuanced conversation about the balance between ambition, innovation, and worker well-being.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about the end goal.
Exactly.
And this brings us to another aspect of the Musk method that's both a strength and a weakness. His incredibly public persona.
Oh, the man lives on Twitter.
Or X as it's known now.
Yeah, X, whatever.
He's not actually known for holding back his opinions.
No, not at all.
Market predictions, political commentary, memes. He's engaging directly with the public in a way that few CEOs ever have.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Totally.
On the one hand, it creates a sense of transparency, builds a cult-like following, allows him to bypass traditional media channels, shape his own narrative.
But on the other hand?
Yeah, it can lead to impulsive statements, market volatility, even legal trouble.
Like that whole taking Tesla private tweet.
Oh, yeah. Landed him in hot water with the SEC.
Big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that whole saga really highlights the risks associated with his unfiltered approach.
And it's not just regulatory scrutiny he's faced. His COVID-19 stance, keeping Tesla factories open despite lockdowns, questioning the severity of the pandemic, generated a lot of controversy.
Yeah, he was definitely criticized for that.
Accusations of recklessness.
Right, and then of course there's the Twitter acquisition itself.
Oh yeah, the Twitter takeover.
Talk about a whirlwind.
I mean, legal battles, policy changes, mass layoffs, rebranding to X, all orchestrated in classic Musk fashion.
Bold, disruptive, utterly unpredictable.
Whether you love it or hate it, it was a power move that really shook up the social media landscape.
And it continues to generate debate about the future of online platforms.
It's a prime example of his willingness to take massive risks, disrupt established institutions, and bet big on his own vision.
Absolutely, he's not afraid to shake things up.
It's this combination of traits, this almost paradoxical blend of genius, audacity, and impulsiveness that makes him such a compelling, albeit controversial, figure.
Yeah, you never know what he's going to do next.
So even beyond SpaceX and Tesla, his entrepreneurial drive extends into other seemingly disparate ventures, each pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Like Solar City, right? Focused on solar energy solutions.
Yeah, which Tesla later acquired.
Right, and that move really speaks to his vision of a sustainable future, not just through electric vehicles, but through clean energy generation and storage.
A more holistic approach.
Yeah, recognizing the interconnectedness of our energy challenges.
And then there's Neuralink.
Oh, Neuralink.
To me, that feels like something straight out of science fiction.
Brain-computer interfaces, it's mind-boggling.
I mean, the implications are huge, both in terms of the potential to treat neurological disorders and to just fundamentally alter how we interact with technology.
Even how we think and perceive the world.
It's almost too much to wrap your head around.
It is, and then just when you think you've got a handle on the scope of his ambition, you've got the Boring Company.
Tackling traffic congestion by digging tunnels.
Yeah, leave it to Elon Musk to come up with a solution that sounds both ludicrously ambitious and strangely practical at the same time.
Like, why didn't I think of that?
Exactly.
The idea is to create these underground networks for high-speed transportation, bypassing surface traffic, potentially revolutionizing how we move within and between cities.
It's classic Musk, right? Identify a problem, reject conventional solutions, and propose something radically different, even if it sounds a bit crazy at first.
So we've got space travel, electric cars, solar energy, brain-computer interfaces, and underground tunnels. Is there anything this guy doesn't want to tackle?
It seems not, and that's what makes him such a captivating figure. He's not content with incremental progress. He's aiming for fundamental transformation across multiple industries.
With an unwavering belief that technology can solve humanity's biggest challenges.
Which is inspiring, but also, a little bit daunting.
Yeah, for sure. And as we've seen, that ambition comes with a price. The controversies, the pushback, the ethical concerns, it's all part of the package.
It's a complex picture.
It is. So the question becomes, is it all worth it? Can we and should we separate the man from the mission?
Those are tough questions.
They are. Even when it comes to government.
Yeah.
His role with the Department of Government Efficiency,
DOGE,
is a prime example of that.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like he's approaching government bureaucracy with the same engineering mindset he applies to his companies.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Interesting.
He's applying this principle of first principles thinking,
Okay.
breaking down these complex problems to their fundamental elements and rebuilding from there.
So he's not afraid to ask why.
Exactly. He's not afraid to ask why things are done a certain way and to challenge established systems if he believes there's a better approach.
Interesting.
It's so fascinating to see how he's applying those same principles to something as complex and entrenched as government bureaucracy.
Yeah.
He's not just talking about, trimming budgets or whatever.
Right.
He's talking about fundamentally changing how the government operates. Even proposing the consolidation of federal agencies.
Yeah.
That's a pretty radical concept.
It is. But radical concepts seem to be his specialty.
Yeah.
And again, it all ties back to this signal versus noise approach.
Right.
He's identified government bureaucracy as a major problem, a signal that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
And he's not letting the potential noise, the political battles, the criticism, the pushback, deter him.
Exactly. Whether you agree with his specific methods or his, political leanings,
Right.
you have to admire his willingness to just tackle these big systemic challenges head on.
Yeah.
He's not content with just building rockets and electric cars.
Right.
He's trying to change the game entirely.
And he's certainly not going about it quietly.
No, he's not.
His recent moves, particularly in the political arena, have been anything but subtle.
True. His decision to co-head a commission on reducing business regulations under President Trump definitely raised some eyebrows.
It did.
It speaks to his willingness to engage with these existing power structures,
Yeah.
even those that he might disagree with,
Yeah.
to achieve his goals.
To get stuff done.
Yeah, that's a signal in itself.
He's playing the long game, thinking strategically about how to leverage influence and make a real impact.
Right.
And then there's the whole Stargate project dispute,
Oh, yeah.
publicly criticizing a $500 billion government initiative.
Wow.
That's not just noise, that's a sonic boom.
It is, and it highlights another crucial aspect of his approach.
Okay.
This unwavering belief in his own judgment.
Hmm?
He's willing to challenge authority,
Yeah,
even when it's the U.S. government backing this major AI project.
right.
Like his research
Yeah.
came to his own conclusions
Mm.
and wasn't afraid to voice them regardless of the potential backlash.
And backlash there was. They
Big.
were quick to criticize.
Yeah.
But Musk seemed completely unfazed.
Right.
It's almost like he thrives on this kind of controversy.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
He's certainly no stranger to controversy,
Right.
and it might be a deliberate part of his strategy, you know?
Course.
By generating controversy, he stays in the headlines,
Right.
keeps people talking,
Keeps it going.
and ultimately keeps the focus on the issues that he cares about.
Yeah.
He's a master of using that attention to amplify his message.
So back to DOGE.
All right.
We have this source detailing his plans for the department.
Okay.
He's aiming to reduce government expenditures by $2 trillion by July 2026.
Wow.
That's a pretty audacious goal even for Elon Musk.
It is ambitious.
Yeah,
But remember, this is the man who aims to colonize Mars.
right.
Lofty goals are his bread and butter.
Yeah,
And the way he's approaching DOGE is fascinating.
okay.
He's applying those same first principles of thinking
Uh-huh.
that he utilizes in his businesses.
Meaning he's looking under the hood,
Yeah.
questioning everything, seeking out inefficiencies,
Right.
trying to streamline processes. It's
Exactly.
like he's treating the government as this massive inefficient machine
Right.
that needs to be re-engineered from the ground up.
That's an excellent analogy.
Okay.
And he's not just talking about cost cutting. He's
Yeah.
talking about fundamentally changing the way government operates.
Which brings us back to his signal versus noise philosophy.
Yeah.
He's not getting bogged down in the day-to-day political squabbles or whatever.
Right.
He's laser focused on what he sees as the core issue,
Uh-huh.
a system in dire need of an overhaul.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that focus allows him to take risks,
Yeah.
to challenge that status quo,
Right.
to push for change,
Yeah.
even when it's unpopular or controversial.
It's almost like he's operating on a different plane of thinking.
Right.
One where the long-term vision outweighs the short-term noise.
I think that's a key insight.
Yeah.
He's able to zoom out and see the bigger picture, the long-term trends, the things that will truly matter in the decades to come.
Right?
And that perspective gives him the courage to make bold moves,
Yeah.
even when they're met with resistance.
Speaking of bold moves,
Okay.
we haven't even touched on his more recent forays into space mining and asteroid deflection.
Oh, wow.
These aren't just business ventures.
Right.
They're pushing the boundaries of what we even consider possible.
Absolutely. And that's what makes him so compelling.
Yeah.
He's constantly pushing the envelope, challenging our assumptions about what the future holds. He's not content with this incremental progress.
Right.
He's aiming for these transformative leaps.
It's almost like he's operating from a different playbook altogether.
Yeah.
One that's not bound by conventional thinking or limitations.
And that unconventional approach,
Yeah.
while sometimes controversial,
of course.
is what allows him to achieve things that others might deem impossible.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
what are your thoughts on the long-term implications of Musk's approach?
Not just for his businesses, but for society as a whole.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think what's fascinating and perhaps even a bit unsettling for some
Yeah.
is that he's blurring the lines between entrepreneur, engineer, visionary,
Right.
and even politician.
Yeah.
He's not operating within the traditional boundaries of any one field.
It's true.
He's creating his own.
Yeah.
And that's a trend we're seeing with other tech titans as well.
It's almost like they're becoming a new breed of power player,
Right.
wielding influence that extends far beyond the boardroom.
Uh-huh.
And that raises all sorts of questions about accountability ethics and the balance of power in a world increasingly shaped by these tech-driven individuals.
You've hit on some crucial points there.
Yeah,
These are questions we'll need to grapple with
for sure.
as we move further into this era of tech-driven disruption.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge the positive aspects of Musk's approach.
Like, he's inspiring a whole generation of entrepreneurs and innovators
Right.
to think bigger, to challenge conventions,
Yeah.
and to pursue these ambitious goals that might have seemed impossible just a few years ago.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
He's showing us what's possible when you combine a bold vision
Right.
with a relentless drive to execute it.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether you agree with everything he does,
Of course.
you have to admit he's making things interesting.
He is.
He's shaking things up,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries,
Mhm.
and forcing us to rethink what the future might hold.
Yeah.
So we've spent the last 2 segments really exploring Elon Musk's world,
Yeah.
from his early influences to his current ventures
Right.
and all the controversies that seem to swirl around him.
Right.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
But as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I think it's time to shift focus
Mm.
from the man himself to the bigger picture.
I agree. It's not just about Elon Musk, the individual.
Right.
It's about what his trajectory represents. This rise of these tech titans
Right.
wielding immense influence, not just in business,
Right.
but in global affairs and politics.
Yeah.
Even shaping the future of humanity itself.
It's a big question.
It raises some pretty profound questions about where we're headed as a society.
Exactly. And he's at the forefront of this shift.
He is.
SpaceX, aiming for Mars colonization.
Yeah.
Tesla, revolutionizing the automotive industry.
Uh-huh.
Neuralink, exploring brain-computer interfaces.
Yeah.
These aren't just companies. These are potential game changers for our species.
Right.
It makes you wonder, what happens when individuals wield this much power?
It's true.
Who holds them accountable?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Yeah,
It's uncharted territory in many ways.
it really is.
On the one hand, you have this incredible potential for innovation and progress
Right.
being driven by individuals with the vision and the resources to actually make things happen.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's the risk of unchecked power, unintended consequences, and a lack of transparency and accountability.
We've talked about his Musk method, the successes, the controversies, but now I think it's time to look ahead. Because if there's one thing we know about Elon Musk, it's that this guy, he's not afraid to think big.
Oh, that's an understatement.
Right, I mean really big.
Yeah, his vision for the future, it's not about like small steps. It's about fundamentally changing, humanity's relationship with technology, energy, even our place in the universe.
I mean, we're talking electric vehicles everywhere, renewable energy powering cities, humans on Mars. I mean, it's
A multi-planetary species, he said.
and that's where I want to start, this Mars ambition. Because it's probably the most, I don't know, audacious element of his vision.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
SpaceX isn't just about launching satellites or sending astronauts to the space station. It's about establishing a permanent, a self-sustaining colony on Mars.
It sounds crazy, right?
It does.
Like science fiction.
But he seems utterly convinced that it's not only possible, but necessary for the long-term survival of humanity.
It's a fascinating idea, but it raises so many questions.
Oh, done.
Technologically, it's a huge challenge, right?
Of course.
You need advancements in propulsion systems, life support systems, habitat construction on a scale we've never even attempted before.
Yeah, and even if we can figure all that out, then what? I mean, what kind of society are we creating on Mars? Who gets to go? Who stays behind? What happens to Earth if we shift our focus and resources to another planet?
Yeah, these are questions that go way beyond engineering. They touch on the very essence of what it means to be human, what kind of future we want to build.
Yeah, absolutely.
To Musk's credit, though, he has acknowledged these ethical considerations. He's even encouraged people to, have these open discussions about the implications of colonizing Mars.
He knows it's not just a technical problem to solve.
Exactly.
But, okay, even beyond Mars, his vision extends to transforming life here on Earth, starting with energy. Tesla's not just about making cool electric cars.
No, it's about changing the whole system.
Yeah, accelerating the transition to a sustainable energy future, electric vehicles, solar panels, battery storage systems. He wants to overhaul how we generate, store, and consume energy.
It's that holistic approach again.
Right. Recognizing that it's all connected, these energy challenges, the urgency of addressing climate change.
It's not just about the technology, it's about changing how we think, challenging the status quo, creating a world where sustainable energy is the obvious choice, not just a niche option.
And then we have Neuralink,
Yeah.
which, I don't know, maybe more than any of his other ventures, pushes the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Oh, definitely. The idea of brain-computer interfaces, merging our minds with technology, it's both exciting and, a little bit terrifying.
Right. On the one hand, you could imagine a future where Neuralink helps treat neurological disorders, restore lost function, maybe even enhance our cognitive abilities. But then there are the questions about what it means to be human, the potential for misuse, the unintended consequences of blurring the lines between our minds and machines.
It's a Pandora's box. Once it's open, who knows what could happen?
Yeah, it's that classic Musk dilemma, pushing the limits of what's possible, even if it challenges our fundamental assumptions about ourselves and the world around us.
And then there's the Boring Company.
Oh yeah, the tunnels.
Which, okay, maybe it doesn't sound as dramatic as colonizing Mars or merging with AI, but it still shows that same drive to challenge conventions and find these unconventional solutions to problems that we've just accepted as, I don't know, inevitable.
Traffic, right.
Yeah, traffic is a nightmare, and instead of just saying, well, that's life in the 21st century, he says, let's dig some tunnels.
Just create these underground networks for high-speed transportation.
Why not?
It's that first principles thinking again. Strip away the assumptions, the preconceived notions, and just ask, what's the most efficient way to move people from point A to point B?
And sometimes the answer is, dig a giant hole.
Right.
Exactly. And whether or not the Boring Company succeeds in the end, it's that willingness to think differently, to challenge the status quo that drives innovation, that pushes us beyond our comfort zones.
We've seen a lot of criticism too.
We have.
His management style,
Yeah.
his treatment of workers, his sometimes reckless pronouncements on social media.
All right.
It's a mixed bag, to say the least.
It is.
And his political involvement,
Yeah.
especially that Stargate project dispute,
Mm-hmm.
has drawn fire from both sides of the aisle.
True.
Some see him as a visionary leader, others a loose cannon.
He's a polarizing figure.
He is.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's often the case with these disruptors,
Right.
They challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
They shake things up, and inevitably they make some enemies along the way.
Right.
But progress rarely happens without some friction.
That's true.
The key, I think, is to encourage open dialogue, critical thinking, and a willingness to engage with different perspectives,
Yeah.
even those we might disagree with.
And that's where that signal versus noise concept becomes so crucial.
Right.
How do we as individuals,
Yeah.
as a society, navigate this constant barrage of information,
Well,
filter out the distractions,
yeah.
and focus on what truly matters?
It's a challenge we all face.
Well-
And I think one of the things we can learn from Musk,
Okay.
whether we agree with his methods or not,
Right.
is the importance of having a clear vision,
Yeah.
a set of guiding principles,
Mhm.
and the willingness to stay focused on those signals, even amidst the chaos and the noise.
That sense of direction of purpose,
Right.
it seems to be a driving force for him.
It does.
It's like he's not just building companies, he's building a future that he believes in.
And that unwavering belief in his vision, that's a powerful thing.
It is.
It allows him to take risks, to push boundaries, to ignore the naysayers, and just keep moving forward. Whether he ultimately succeeds in achieving all of his goals is another question.
Yes.
But the impact he's having on the world is undeniable.
But how do we, like regular people, actually learn from this? What can we take away and use in our own lives?
Yeah.
Even if we're not building spaceships or anything. We'll explore that next.
Okay, so we've spent this whole deep dive, exploring Elon Musk, his companies, his mindset, that almost like superhuman drive he's got.
It's pretty incredible.
It is. But let's be real, most of us, we're not out here building rockets or brain chips or anything.
Right.
So what's the takeaway for the rest of us? What can we actually learn from this guy?
That's the big question, isn't it? Because it's so easy to get caught up in all the spectacle, the big visions, the billions of dollars.
It's just dazzling.
It is. But what we've tried to do here is uncover those principles underneath it all, the way he approaches problems, his goals.
Because that's the stuff we can actually use.
Exactly. It's not about copying him exactly. It's more like taking those strategies and seeing how they fit into our own lives.
Yep.
Even if our missions, so to speak, are completely different.
Right. And one of the biggest things I think is that thinking big, it's not just a motivational poster.
It's deeper than that.
It's a whole shift in how you see things. Musk doesn't look at a problem and say, how can we make this a little better?
He goes for the max.
He asks, what's the most ambitious solution, even if it seems impossible right now?
Which brings us back to that first principles thinking, doesn't it?
It all connects.
Because if you're only looking at how things are done now, you get stuck in those limits.
And trapped by the way everyone else thinks.
But if you strip it all back to those core principles, like suddenly new doors open.
Possibilities you didn't even see before.
Exactly. And this applies to anything, not just super high-tech stuff. Let's say you're trying to get healthier. Don't just think about, like, cutting out soda.
Right.
What would a truly amazing health plan look like for you? even if it means some big changes.
Big changes can be scary, but they can also be the most rewarding.
Exactly. Or stuck in a dead-end job. Don't just look for the next rung on the ladder.
Think about your dream career, the one that really lights you up.
And what would it actually take to get there, even if those steps seem huge right now?
They might not be as impossible as you think.
So it's like stretching your imagination, almost forcing yourself to think beyond those limits you've set in your mind.
Because often, those limits are the only thing holding us back.
And once you've got that big, ambitious goal, that's when the risk management comes in, right?
Because anytime you're trying to do something big, there's going to be risk. That's just life.
It's unavoidable.
But Musk, he doesn't run from it. He studies it, understands it, and then makes smart choices based on what he knows.
And that's something we can all learn, right? It doesn't matter if it's investing money, changing careers, even a relationship.
Assess those potential downsides. Do what you can to minimize them, but don't let fear stop you from taking action.
Don't get paralyzed.
And that loops back to learning and adapting, too. Musk's always digging for new knowledge, questioning what he thinks he knows, and changing his approach when he has to.
It's that growth mindset in action.
Always be willing to learn, to try things, to course correct along the way.
Never stop growing. And then, of course, there's the inspiration piece. That unshakable belief that you can do something amazing.
Musk isn't just chasing money or fame. He's driven by a vision of the future he wants to see. A future where we solve the big problem.
And that's got to be powerful to have that kind of purpose.
It is, and it's something we can all tap into, even if our goals are a little less, interplanetary.
It's about finding what truly motivates you, what gets you excited, what gives you that resilience to keep going when things get rough.
Because they will get rough, that's just part of it.
So while most of us won't be building rockets to Mars anytime soon,
Probably not.
we can still take those core principles, right? So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what are your final thoughts on the Elon Musk phenomenon? What does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
It's a complex question with no easy answers.
Right.
But I think one thing is clear.
Right.
Elon Musk is a symbol of our time, a reflection of the immense power and potential of technology,
Yeah.
and a harbinger of the challenges and opportunities we face
Right.
as we navigate this rapidly evolving landscape.
He's a reminder that the future isn't predetermined.
It isn't
It's being shaped right now
right now.
by individuals with bold visions and the will to make them a reality.
Exactly.
Whether we admire him or criticize him,
Yeah,
we can all learn from his relentless pursuit of progress,
absolutely.
his focus on the long game, and his willingness to challenge the status quo.
And as you go about your day, think about the signals that you're focusing on, the noise that you're filtering out,
Right.
and the bold moves that you're willing to make to achieve your own goals.
It's all about taking action.
It is.
So-
Because as Elon Musk has shown us, the future belongs to those who dare to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Think big, manage the risk, never stop learning, and find that inspiration that keeps us moving forward.
Those are tools anyone can use.
It's been a really interesting journey, this deep dive into Elon Musk.
I've enjoyed it.
Me too, honestly. It's given me a lot to think about.
It has.
What about you? What's one idea or strategy that really stuck with you today?
I think for me, it's that shift in perspective. Not just accepting the limits we see, but really pushing ourselves to imagine what's possible.
Love that.
It's a reminder that we can all do incredible things if we dare to think big and embrace the journey with all its ups and downs.
That's a great one. And for everyone listening, we'd love to hear from you too. What really stood out from this deep dive? What are you going to use in your own life? Hit us up in the comments. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.